This review is for The Lego Book, published by DK. This is the revised and expanded edition. So originally this book was published in 2009, which was 10 years after the Ultimate Lego Book was published, which I have done a review on, and it's sort of the I guess you could call it the ancestor of this book. So I think this book is absolutely fantastic. It's so much fun going through. So it starts out with sort of like the history of the company, very sort of briefly touches on that, and then it really gets sort of straight into the sets. If you saw the review on the Ultimate Lego Book, one thing I mentioned was that the Lego themed sets were almost completely absent from that book, whereas in this one they very much make up the bulk of the book, which I actually prefer. I know some people don't, but I actually really liked it. I mean, if you're cynical, you could look at this book and basically say, well, this is just a catalogue for Disney and Warner Brothers toys, in which case you might not actually be wrong, but I don't actually mind. I sort of really enjoy it. It's not a complete catalogue of, every set that's ever come out. In fact, I'm not even sure if it shows every theme that has ever been produced. It really just focuses on the major themes and then showcases some of the highlight sets from each theme. But in addition to that, what I really was surprised by and really enjoyed was that beyond just the sets and a bit of company history and development, this book, it's called The Lego Book, and it really does a great job of capturing the sort of entire Lego franchise, the entire brand. It has things on Duplo and things on Mindstorm and the robotics and all of the licensed themed sets, pages on Lego branded clothing, video games, the parks. I mean, the things that really stood out to me, that really said this book is trying to sort of cover everything in a really great way, is that it also includes like a page on the Lego website, and then also sort of like a showcase of the Lego catalogs, which was so unexpected that I actually really thought was a pretty great idea to make this sort of feel like really comprehensive coverage of this brand. Compared to the Ultimate Lego Book from 1999, this one just covers so much more. There's such a larger variety of topics covered in this book. The text is also really great. If you've ever read any DK book, which I'm sure you have, you'll know the basic gist of what the text is like. It's, even though a lot is covered, it's not like in-depth text. There'll be a couple of short paragraphs and then just lots of sort of fact boxes next to images. And on the whole, the information they chose to include was really good and insightful. Genuinely, the only bad thing that I have to say about this book is something that a lot of DK books tend to suffer from. That is, in the center they will have a really huge, great big picture, and then surround it with smaller pictures, many of which are far too small. Here's a good example: sets to remember. So it's sort of just a gallery of the Lego Castle theme sets, sort of like the best of. So it's not trying to cover every set that's ever been released. It's just trying to show the highlights. So it makes me feel, if it's not trying to be that comprehensive, why are there, you can't make out any detail in this picture? It's not like, say, something like this on every spread where you can see lots of really great detail. That was the major disappointment, was how many pictures are far too small, so small that they're absolutely useless. But except for a couple of those recurring exceptions, all the rest of the imagery is really fantastic. So when the Lego Book was initially released in 2009, it actually came in a slipcase with a second book called Standing Small, 30-year celebration of the Lego minifigure, something like that. And obviously that book was basically just sort of like a showcase of the minifigures throughout history. But with this 2012 updated edition of the Lego Book, it doesn't include the slipcase or the minifigure book. That 2009 Standing Small minifigure book that was included with the original Lego Book was essentially greatly expanded and released as a separate book called Lego Minifigure Year by Year: A Visual History. And I will talk about that book and how it compares to the Standing Small book in another review. But basically, when I went to buy these books, the way it stood was you could either get the original 2009 set that included the two books, or you could buy the 2012 updated edition and the minifigure year-by-year visual chronicle. And so I chose that option because you're just getting so much more stuff than was included in the original release. In fact, buying these two more recent books separate is such a significant upgrade that I would actually recommend that anyone who has the original slipcase edition actually seriously consider the upgrade, because the thing is, it's always frustrating when you hear that they've updated and expanded a book that you already own, because, you know, sometimes they're like, it now includes 8 extra pages, and it's really hard to sort of justify if the new material is worth shelling out for a second copy of the book. But in this instance, I definitely recommend it. Like I said, I'll compare the minifigure books in another review, but just even comparing the two Lego books, the 2009 edition is about 200 pages, the 2012 edition is about 250 pages, so that's 20% extra content, which to my knowledge is one of the most significant expansions of a DK book. And so in that light, I definitely think it's worth it. You know, 50 extra pages is pretty significant, and it's stuff on Lord of the Rings Lego, Ninjago, Pirates of the Caribbean, more stuff on the superhero lines. It really is a pretty great improvement. The only thing that annoys me about the updated edition compared to the original edition is something that DK does do from time to time with their updated books, which is where they'll not only expand it, but they'll also take stuff out from the original book, which kind of annoys me. In this case, the only instance I could find was a 2-page spread on the Lego Universe game has been removed, because of course by the time this book rolled around, that game had been discontinued, and so now Lego Universe is only mentioned in a small text box in the corner, which I understand their logic for taking that out, but I don't agree with it. I think it was still worthy of inclusion. It was a great looking page, and so it's sad to see that go. And beyond that, there is the odd image here and there that has been removed or replaced, but on the whole, this 2012, but on the whole, the updated edition is a vastly superior book.